Good morning. We all know kids who've been assigned Torah portions for their bar or bat mitzvah that make us wonder, how on earth will they say something about that? No such worries today. These verses are packed with action and meaning, compelling, wondrous, and hard. There's laughter and joy, sorrow, despair, the entire spectrum of human emotion. And through it all, God is right there, fulfilling promises, listening, consoling, providing direction at critical turning points. We read today about Sarah and Hagar, a well-known but complicated story. The reading begins with God fulfilling his promise to Abraham and Sarah. At 90, she gives birth to a son, whom they call Isaac, meaning laughter. He is circumcised and grows. Abraham hosts a feast the day he is weaned. So we begin with great joy. But the text shifts quickly and takes a hard turn. Sarah demands that Abraham cast out Hagar and her son Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn. Years earlier, Sarah, then Sarai, had herself suggested Abraham have a child with Hagar, when it seemed impossible she could ever do so herself. But of course, now she has. Cast out that slave woman and her son, Sarah tells Abraham, for the son of that slave shall not share in the inheritance with my son, Isaac. Sarah's command distresses Abraham greatly, we read, for it concerns his son, Ishmael. It distresses me greatly, too, and maybe you as well. When I first read the story, I was furious with Sarah, really angry that she demand Hagar and Ishmael be cast out after all these years of their living together in the same home. I couldn't get over it, really, or take in the rest of the story. If you were a psychologist, you might say my response was a bit overdetermined. What's that about, you might ask? I met with Rabbi Ullman, with whom many of us at TBE are fortunate to study, and he drew my attention to one word in particular, moed. Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age at the set time, moed, of which God had spoken. The plural, moedim, is often translated as holidays or festivals, but the word is better understood as divinely commanded appointments. So Sarah doesn't conceive and have Isaac at just any old time. Of course not. This is Torah. But at a specific time, set and spoken by God, like creation itself, when the word is first used in Torah. As I listened to Rabbi Ullman explain moed's meaning, it slowly dawned on me. If Sarah has Isaac at God's set time, then the story's other events, everything that flows from this, also come at their set time. After great joy comes a painful wrenching. While I desperately want Sarah to have been kinder to Hagar, with whom her life was so intertwined, I suddenly got it. Like it or not, this is the truth of this story. More than I was angry at Sarah, I realized I was hurt. The story is real, and it lives. We have each of us been cast out like Hagar, and whether we have meant to or not, we have, like Sarah, cast out others. It's the truth of our lives, too. My father had 4 wives. I'm the only child of the 3rd marriage, with a half-brother from the 1st, and 2 beloved half-sisters from the 4th. And while my stepmother didn't call my mom a slave woman, I know there were moments when she said things that weren't much different. My father told me as much. So I can imagine she said something like, "You're no longer married to that woman, and I don't want any trace of her in our home." My stepmother didn't say these things because she's a bad person. She said them because she's human, and she found herself smack dab in the middle of a complicated story. She had 2 girls to raise, a new family to make strong, and my dad's past, like Abraham's, presented challenges. My brother and I weren't cast out exactly, not like Hagar and Ishmael, but we always knew we were not part of the family that now mattered most. Friends have noted that my family can be a bit biblical in its drama, but I'm willing to bet that everyone here can find echoes of this story in your own family. One child favored by a parent over the others, two siblings who are close friends while a third always feels somehow shut out, less than, or the family member who, for whatever reason, casts out him or herself. The word moed is used only once in the reading, but after Hagar and Ishmael are cast out, Hagar has her own appointment with God. Abraham sent them out with bread and water, but as they wander in the wilderness, these are quickly depleted. Hagar places Ishmael under a bush, sits down a short distance away, and cries. These verses heavily foreshadow Abraham's offering of Isaac to God, but here, as with Isaac, when all seems quite desperate, God intervenes. God hears Ishmael's cry, and an angel calls out to Hagar, telling her not to worry. God tells Hagar what he told Abraham about Ishmael. I will make a great nation of him. God opens Hagar's eyes, and she sees a well of water, like Abraham seeing the ram. Ishmael drinks and lives. God was with the boy, we read, and he grew up. This ends Hagar's story in Torah, but in Islam, of course, her story is only beginning. Muslims honor Hagar as an important matriarch, for Muhammad descends from Ishmael. In fact, Hagar's desperate search in the wilderness for water is the basis for the Hajj, the annual pilgrimage Muslims make to Mecca. The well, called Zamzam, is a holy site, still producing water. I cannot read this part of the story without feeling sorrow, but I understand it's essential that Hagar and Ishmael's story separate from Sarah and Isaac's. If both of Abraham's sons are to live into their destiny, God making of them each a great nation, then it must unfold this way. I said before that we are each both Hagar and Sarah. We are cast out, and intentionally or not, we cast out others. Years after my parents' divorce, Dennis and I were married. Though I hadn't yet converted to Judaism, we had decided our family would be Jewish, so we wanted to be married under a chuppah by a rabbi. Because I hadn't converted, it wasn't easy in 1994 to pull this off, but we did, with a wonderful rabbi. We stood on the lawn of my grandfather's home and signed a ketubah. The rabbi sang a nigun. I said my vows in Hebrew, a friend sang Lechi Lach, and we smashed a glass under our feet. And I lost my place. My family is nominally Christian, but deeply embedded in Christian culture. I don't think my father and stepmother knew any Jews besides Dennis, really. So I'm pretty sure that for my family, our wedding was like watching a National Geographic special on PBS. What's this? Weddings are often complicated. I know this. But I understand now what I didn't then, and this Torah portion has helped me know it. I love Dennis, and I was excited about the life we were starting. But in my exuberance, I was tough. As I embraced a Jewish life, my family, while happy for us, was surely confused. It was so foreign to them. I'm sure they felt a bit betrayed, cast out even, wondering if the future I was enthusiastically embracing would have room for them in the world they know. All these years later, besides extending invitation to our daughter's B'nai Mitzvot, I don't talk to anyone in my family about our Jewish life. That's the fraught peace I've brokered. I watch now as friends, parents themselves, struggle with their own fears of being shut out. Often it's when their son or daughter marries someone who isn't Jewish. There are many ways, of course, less dramatic, more common, that we shut out even those we love most, with our anger, misspoken words, or in all the many ways we become distracted. No matter how fulfilling our lives, we will all suffer loss. It's just a part of it. Like today's story, our lives are filled with contradictions, joy and laughter side by side with great pain. Gaining insight can be elusive and often comes only with time. My hope is that Sarah and Hagar's story reminds you, as it does me, that God is with us in our joy and perhaps especially in our sorrow. This story gives me deeper understanding of my experience, a small but real shift that lets in light, and with it, room for forgiveness, acceptance, and I pray, more compassion. During these sacred days, our Moedim, we each engage in teshuvah, reckoning with the truth of who we really are and realigning ourselves with God. We work to turn away from anger, shame, judgment, everything that separates us from God, others, from ourselves. We strive to forgive. May our eyes, like Hagar's, open to the miracles before us. And may we all feel God's presence in our lives and grow in understanding and compassion. Hashanah Tova.